letting students, voice their opinions, etc. But there was like a couple of things that, like on the opposite end of it, those who didn't participate in the popular consensus of, let's change gun laws, etc. Some were punished, and like one teacher, a history teacher, just had a little debate in her class, with the students and said, hey, look, this is good that the administration is doing this. It's okay that you want to do this, but you think if it was a different topic like, anti-abortion, the administration would allow this to happen. So she was just trying to get the kids to discuss this, and she wasn't discouraging them for having been involved in the march or anything of that sort. And it was leaked, as it were, to the administration, and they suspended her for a few days just for simply having the question. She didn't complain. I originally thought it was a letter when we discussed it, before the show, but she actually didn't complain to the administration. She didn't say anything. She just offered up that as a discussion in class, and somebody took offense to it. And then, but some parents rallied around her, and some other teachers rallied around her, and they sort of unsuspended her, and it's not on her permanent record. But there was another case of where things got violent.
Oh yeah, so there was this kid in Glenpool, Oklahoma. This is amazing. It's like I'm laughing in shock, not really laughing.
O.J. Simpson has returned.
Yeah, it says that basically, this kid had to have surgery because he suffered a 3-minute beatdown for not going out to take part in the walkout about guns at his school. And he had posted a Snapchat, a note saying, "You won't catch me outside doing the walkout, but at 10, I'll watch all the clowns head to the sports arena for the circus." The post was made just before the walkout to end gun violence last Wednesday, but Chandler said it wasn't targeted at the kids actually protesting. He says, quote, "The people doing it to skip class, those people, they're the clowns."
Yeah, that was another thing.
And so they said that after he made the post, a 17-year-old student got angry and sent him messages about it. But he said it wasn't until lunch things got serious. Now get this. "I sat down after I got my food, and he comes up and he squeezes right here. And I stand up because he squeezed me. And then he's like, 'I'll beat your effing A,' Chandler said. After lunch, the bell rang, and I'm walking, exiting the cafeteria, right when I'm exiting the cafeteria to go to my other class, he's tugging on my bag. He tried to get away, but couldn't. I couldn't spit anything out. I was shocked. He slams me, punches me, slams me again. That's when people said they heard a pop. Chandler's collarbone is broken in 5 places. He has a chipped tooth, a cut by his nose, road rash, a bump on the back of his head, as well as other bruises and cuts. The whole thing lasted around 3 minutes. The school calls it a fight, but Chandler disagrees. This was a tug from the back and then an assault, he said, protesting school violence for 17 minutes, and then an hour and 30 minutes later, I come out with 5 pieces of my collarbone. The student accused of the assault bonded out of jail after his arrest. And Chandler's mother is filing for a protective order. Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's a really bad look to when you're trying to get a nonviolence rally in motion and you use violence in order to get the point. That's like trying to raise awareness about world hunger and then eating a whole bag of Doritos. Like when you get
that sounds like a good idea. I was actually in a Doritos commercial.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Nacho cheese.
A friend of mine's dog was actually in one of the Doritos commercials. The one that says "Don't play fetch."
That's awesome.
You really do have dog connections.
I do have some dog and celebrity. I'm mum about most things about these things, so you cannot press me on this. But the free will is free will, and so it's kind of like, there shouldn't be a punishment for not following the popular opinion. And that kind of ties in with that whole, the divisiveness of the way people talk to each other on social media with, the different, political sides, which is what got Carl inspired, he says, to talk about Stormy Daniels for some reason.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I was just going to mention this offhand in relation to O.J. Moore, the whole culture of narcissism and confessionalism and, everything. The 2 points that basically, until maybe the Monica Lewinsky thing 20 years ago, you could never talk about these kinds of things on TV, especially with a president, But then now, things have changed so much that it's not just a matter of, you can talk about it because there was no way around certain words being said in the Clinton-Lewinsky thing. But now it's like social media has speeded things up to the point where that if a topic comes up, a scandal hits, there's no hiding from it. There's no getting out of the way of being completely, exposed to the world for whatever you're accused of. And that applies to both Harvey Weinstein and to Trump, and and things like this. It's across the board, happening everywhere. And I find it very interesting, and to see what would happen. A friend who's Christian pointed out to me on Facebook that so everybody has some sort of hidden hypocrisy, and some are, of course, more blatant than others. But they're saying, look, until 20 years ago, nobody would ever hear about this stuff. And now it's like, even if he has some side of the story that could be differing Trump, which I don't believe it would have a different side of the story here, but even if he did have one, almost nobody would give him a chance because the court of public opinion is stronger than ever these days, faster and stronger than ever.
Yeah, but part of it too, though, is he dug his own grave when he has his Sean Spicer at the time said things like we have the right to disagree with the facts.
Oh yeah,
like when you say things like that, like you're kind of burying your own grave and you set yourself up for people to attack anything you say at that point, even if it is true.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so I think that'll be interesting for people. I think that. Do you think it's going to be huge ratings? I think it will be. Stormy on 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be a good audience. Maybe for some of the wrong reasons, but yeah, I think a lot of people are going to tune in.
What's going to be number one? That or Roseanne? If they're the same count as the same week, I don't know.
Right? Yeah, it kind of. But the thing with the Trump administration is that there's so much happening that with any other president this would be enormous news, and it's getting shoved to the side.
Yeah,
because it's amongst like 4 or 5 other things that's going on with the administration.
4 or 5 every hour.
Right? Yeah. Like it reminds me of when I was in high school. And I took my parents' car out for a drive, even with my girlfriend at the time, even though I wasn't allowed to have anyone in the passenger seat yet because I was 16 and a half. And I also threw a party at my neighbor's house while they were away on vacation, and I didn't get in trouble for the second thing because they just like forgot about it because they were so mad about the car happening. So
that's funny.
Yeah, it's almost like there's too much happening at once for me to get in trouble for.
Yeah, wow. Well, so we should move on to this past week at the movies. There was a giant breakout hit that surprised all of Hollywood and all the entertainment journalists, including myself, at least. I don't know if you thought it would be huge, but I Can Only Imagine came out and made $17 million at about half the theaters that most other movies in the top 10 were playing at. And so it could do even better this weekend, possibly, because a lot of theaters are rushing in going, holy cow, I'll take some of that. And but basically, the movies tells the true story behind what inspired the writing of a Christian single called I Can Only Imagine by Bart, what was his last name?
Bart Millard, and his band is called Mercy Me.
Yeah. And it's the biggest selling Christian pop song of all time. And the debut album it came from sold 3 million copies, and they're still big stars today. And I went and saw it yesterday with Tanya, and you'd already seen it, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so what did you feel makes it stand out from other so-called faith-based films?
I loved it, yeah. You know, what was really interesting for me is that the song itself, when it came out in 2000, I think either 2001 or 2, it just had this enormous crossover appeal where, yes, it appealed to Christians, obviously, but it made its way all the way to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. So everybody was listening to it all over the place because the message behind it just really spoke to people. And I think it's really fitting and really pleasantly surprising that 15 years later, this movie about the song has that same crossover appeal and the same understanding that and actually I got to speak with the directors, the Irwin brothers at the junket a couple weeks ago, and they said that what really kind of the struggle for faith-based films a lot of times is that they're kind of preaching to the choir and that they can be really divisive.
Yeah.
But they said Christian themes, when they're done correctly, can absolutely be universally appealing. And I think you're seeing that happen with this film. I mean, I never I don't know about you, but I never felt like I was being hit over the head with the message or anything like that. I thought it was just really well done, really well executed. It's just a great story about father-son redemption.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that that this movie, that it was not made. I thought when I went in, I thought it was made by a company called PureFlix, which is really catching fire because they had a big hit with God's Not Dead about 3 years ago, I believe, 4 years ago now, and God's Not Dead. No offense to anybody that liked it, but probably more evangelicals liked it than Catholics probably weren't into it, I would assume. But the thing is, it was very, very, that was a blatant hit you over the head. I mean, this is this absurd premise that a kid goes to college, his first day in class, in philosophy class, the teacher comes out and writes, "God is dead" on the chalkboard. And it's like, I don't care if you're going to Berkeley, that ain't the first thing a teacher's going to throw at you in a philosophy class.
Right.
It was laughable. And then this kid is like, but the teacher's like, okay, who wants to comment on this? And just happens to pick on the one really devout Christian kid in the class, not knowing he is, thinking that he has malleable minds in front of him. And the kid's like, I can't comment on that, sir. No, because I disagree. God isn't dead. And so then it sets off this whole battle of minds between the kid trying to prove in a debate with the teacher, whether God's alive or not. And then there's all these parallel stories that were like, a Muslim girl growing up in middle America, and the second she wears something remotely Western, not even trashy, like jeans or something, it shows her dad just grabs her and just starts wailing on her and then this Chinese exchange student who comes from the atheistic China, and he's like, oh, your faith is so mysterious to me. Could you share with me about Jesus? And probably these things happen, but it's like, trust me, it's so heavy-handed that it's, and we both are Catholic film critics. We both work for Christian media. We want to see good things happen. Why we're raving about, I can only imagine now. But man, when they do it wrong, I'm going to be probably harsher than a lot of secular critics because it's embarrassing to all of us as a people.
Right? Yeah. It almost has become a cliche at this point that Christian-based films are going to be heavy-handed, and so it's such a delight when it's not, and when it's actually done really well. And so
that's a good word for it. Yes.
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar with the story about Bart Millard, what the movie chronicles a lot of is he and his father, who was played by Dennis Quaid. The father was alcoholic, really abusive to the lead singer Bart Millard when he was a child, and it seemed like there was no way of repairing that relationship. But then through a sequence of events, Bart's father realizes, actually the major event.
Don't give away too much.
Okay, yeah. Well,
just a lot of interesting twists and turns happen, and they actually do make it work. Where I was surprised, I really didn't know the story, and it was not as obvious. There's things that when you look back and go, "Oh, of course this happened or that happened," but when you're watching it, it works. I don't know who these Irwin brothers are, but it's two guys that are brothers, clearly directed this movie. And what else have they done? I looked them up. They had October Baby, which I'd heard about, but I hadn't seen. And that dealt with abortion. It was something about a girl going to college after she had survived an abortion as a child. Literally been an unborn child that somehow managed to get out of the womb, and they saved it because you can't just, kill it off once it's out of the womb. You're pretty much, the rare occasions that happens, I think you have to be protected. So, excuse me, but it was about that, and I never saw it. But do you know what else they've done?
October Baby, that was the only credit of theirs that I was even somewhat familiar with, and I didn't even know much about that. But I think this is the one where they're really finding their stride as filmmakers and as storytellers.
I mean, it's really well shot. I mean, the camera work is fantastic. Obviously the music is compelling because of it's about a song, but the acting is even really good. I mean, they got some Broadway star to make his debut as Bart, and his voice is amazing. And then
and he's actually terrific from an acting standpoint too.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid is just like, Tanya told me that she saw Dennis Quaid talk on Glenn Beck's show, and that Glenn was like, "Oh, this is Oscar worthy," and I was thinking, "Oh, well, that's Glenn Beck talking," and I'm not a fan. But I was like, "Wow, if there is fair justice,